Welcome to the Nonprofit Corner Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. I'm so excited. You just have no idea how excited I am today for today's guest. It's a fellow dancer. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, I have to calm down. Let me just breathe and get composed here. But it's Shatay Hayes. Shatay, where actually are you from? What city are you in?
I'm originally from Houston, but I live in the Atlanta area.
But now you're in the Atlanta area. I'm familiar with that too. Visit there a lot.
Nice.
So maybe one day I'll meet you.
I
Um,
would love that. I would love that.
but we have more important things to talk about because both of us want to help nonprofits succeed.
Mhm.
So before we get started, I want you to really introduce yourself to our audience. Most of them are nonprofits, but just give us some background of who you are and how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, I'll give us a quick little something so we can get right into the nitty gritty of our conversation. I am Shatay Hayes. I'm the founder of Career Steward, and I'm a creative strategist and a storyteller. I spent my first career as a professional dancer choreographer, watching stories come to life on live stages, and then as an ed tech leader, I embedded storytelling into the career content and programs that my team delivered. Worked in the nonprofit space in that capacity as well, and now as a consultant social impact leaders and orgs come to me to produce like impact stories to help them win clients, contracts, or influence. So I'm really excited to be talking to you today about strategy and storytelling. I can't wait.
Absolutely. I want more history on this dance career. I'm sorry. You gotta feed my soul.
I will, and I love to talk about it. So I had a commercial dance career. I grew up dancing my entire life and did competitive dance and dance in the community and dance in church, like danced everywhere, performed in college as well. And then I studied something else because I went to college and my mom said, don't major in dance, which in her defense, I didn't necessarily need it. And, I don't know, but it was the only thing that I ever loved and the only thing I ever did. So I still performed. And then when I got out of college, I said, you know what? I'm going to be a professional performer and I'm going to move to LA. And so,
Yes, sometimes we just have to follow our passion, and
yep.
that's what a lot of nonprofits do. They're following their passion. But I too was told, don't
Yeah.
you get that dance degree. But I actually, my bachelor's is a health and physical education, minor in
Yeah.
dance, minor in speech, minor in science. And
Mhm.
I went back and got a master's in dance history and production. So
That's yeah.
I
I
I
did the same
stayed
thing.
on the path.
I did the same thing. So I moved to LA, got the agent, was auditioning and doing all the things. So I worked for about 7 years and then I went and got a master's in dance from Sam Houston State University. And I choreographed a ton of theater, musical theater. I love theater and taught, was a dance and adjunct professor for a number of years. And I worked overseas and I just performed and taught and choreographed for forever and loved all of it.
As I was telling you earlier before we started the pro, I taught for 28 years, and
Mhm.
I took our children, our students. We went to the Fringe Festival in
Mm.
Edinburgh, Scotland. I've
Nice.
taken my dance company all over the U.S. to France, to the Festival de la Rue in Orlac. Uh,
Wow.
it was just exciting just to
Yeah.
do all of that stuff. I also
Mhm.
taught on the college level.
Mhm.
So our paths really do align.
Yep.
We did a lot of things. I'm a whole lot older than you, but
But you're looking good, I gotta say. It's gotta be all that dance and everything else, yeah.
but we were talking, and I want to expand on that because many people ask me, and you probably get the same question. So you were in dance. How does that relate to
Mhm.
organizational management? And I always
Mhm.
go, choreography is not easy. Yeah,
Mm, mm-mm.
if you're not process driven. So tell me a little about how you incorporate processes into what you're doing now, because you're a consultant and you
Mhm.
got to use processes. How do you pull some of those prior dance tools from your,
Yeah.
and help them with your organizations?
My goodness, I use it every single day. Like I get that question a lot. There is one because there is no separating that from who I am, right? It will always be who I am. It is always how I lead, even. But even in my study, even though I didn't major in dance, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and I have a master's degree in dance. And for me, the through line is that in both of those degrees, I was required to research and then produce a body of work from that research. I still do that every single day with storytelling and content production and even leading programs teams. It's like, okay, do we know what the industry is saying? What are these people? What are the outcomes we're trying to move towards? How do we build curriculum for it? How do we deliver workshops for it? Like all of that is the same thing. But in terms of dance skills specifically, when you're a department head, when you're teaching, when you're over the choreography of a show, you've got to really know how to rally the teams around you and have buy-in for the people so that your vision can come to life. You really got to know how to work with people and teach them and have patience with them to make the story come to life in the way that you would like it to. But even still, then it's going to be what it wants to be at the end of the day. You've got to know there's some resilience that I take every single day from dance. Like how many times I was told no, and like how to sort of move work forward even in the face of obstacles. I know how to move quickly. I worked on a production of Hairspray once. We had 2.5 weeks to put up a show that huge. And so
Wow.
now whenever someone's like, we got a tight deadline, I'm like, what you got? Like, let's go for it. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much. The list can go on and on. There's so much from my dance
Yeah.
life that I just use every single day.
Yeah. I just wanted our listeners to understand that, us dancers,
Hmm.
we get it, but they often question, you know, what how does that give you the expertise to be telling me what to do?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you laid it out perfectly.
Yeah.
So as we're going to be talking about storytelling, and we know how important stories are, but there's so many different types of stories that
Mhm.
nonprofits need to develop. Like I help write website content.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a story. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
certain language you have. Yes, there's SEO and all of those other things that you have to incorporate into it, but you're still trying to pull out the essence of
Mhm.
who they are. And you made the statement impact
Yeah.
statement, or impact stories.
Yeah.
What's your definition of an impact story?
I love that question so much. And this applies to nonprofits and it applies to you and I as professionals. It applies to everyone. That is like how you're conveying your professional value. What have you accomplished in the world? And not sort of like just by way of trophy certificates awards. I mean, what have you accomplished for the greater good or for the community you're trying to serve? How do you
Absolutely.
tell that story? It's so 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 important to be telling
Right.
that story and to tell it well.
Um, See, impact is one of my favorite words
Mhm.
because I have training on the logic model,
Mhm.
which its whole framework is based on. You start with what are your outcomes and impact?
Yeah.
Identify those, and then you back into the whole
Yeah.
process is backing into the outcome, the impact,
Mhm.
the change you're making. What action have you initiated within your constituents or who you serve that is for the greater good? And
Mhm.
that's the impact, and that is your power, because you're not looking at profit and loss as a nonprofit. Your measurement of success is your
Impact.
impact. And
Mhm.
that's why it's so important, and you're going to teach some folks today how to do it, is to how to clearly communicate what that impact is.
Mhm.
It's one of the most important elements of storytelling, writing letters to donors,
Yeah.
which is also storytelling.
Mhm.
Any written or communication that's done, it needs to convey impact. And so I was so glad you used that word. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to get back to how to tell winning stories. You're going to teach them how to do that. I'm so
Ooh.
excited. So we're going to be back in just a few moments. The application of artificial intelligence, AI, for nonprofits can be an important resource. Get your free AI policy template to make sure your nonprofit is using those strategies correctly and find out more about all of the different tools that are available for you. Okay, we are back with the Nonprofit Corner podcast. Again, your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and our special guest, Shatay Hayes. My girl, oh my goodness. Okay, so why did you name this session, How to Tell Winning Stories?
It's the thing I think that just came through me at the moment, but what I will say about winning, that word specifically, is because storytelling can help you achieve, accomplish, win whatever it is that you are going after. It can help you think about when you're in an interview, like they ask for stories. Those interviews help you win the job. They can help you win a promotion. They can help you win a funding, right? More clients, the contract. And so it really is like what's the message that you're conveying and how you're using that to help you accomplish whatever goal you have in front of you.
Would you equate it to marketing?
And 1000%, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
See, I always throw that in there because many nonprofits think their biggest challenge is fundraising. But generally, their biggest challenge is marketing, or poor marketing, or lack of marketing, or a marketing plan. Because everything has to go through the marketing plan, whether you're trying to recruit board members, individual donors, major donors, events, all of them. Even if you're trying to get and find the people that you serve, what your mission is, you have to put it out there and talk about it, which is marketing. So yes, winning is great. I'm always into strategies and things like that. And so one of your key takeaways is the importance of alignment and strategies as you're working through these stories. Give us some more detail on what you mean by that.
Alignment really is there sort of a connection between what you're trying to accomplish, like who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, the easiest thing I can say, I know we're talking towards nonprofits, but the easiest thing that came to my mind is when I think of someone who is going out for a promotion or going out for a job, for example, and they set out to do all of the activities that would warrant them getting that thing, but the story, there's no alignment in who they are and what they're trying to go after, right? And the same thing could actually be the case for nonprofits. Maybe you're going after a grant for a program that actually isn't in alignment with the services that you offer, the mission that you have. And so
the mission,
going after dollars just to make sure you're getting dollars. Like you first have to start with, okay, like who are we? What are we trying to accomplish in this world? And
your
then
mission.
you've got to, then the spokes go out from there. So you got to start from that place of
I call the mission your compass. That everything should all directions should come from that mission. And if you're not in alignment and you're not pointing directly to your mission in terms of your alignment and your strategies, then you've gone off mission.
Which people don't understand you. They don't understand that. You know what I mean? And then you stay stuck, right? So it's gotta be clear who you are and what your position is in the world.
Right. And okay, I'm the founder of the Philanthropreneur Foundation. Our mission, real simple, to build capacity of nonprofits through education, awareness, and resources. And so everything we do is education, awareness, and resources. There is no if, ands, or buts. That is what we do. And when people come and say, oh, we want to partner with you and do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, that's not quite what we do. And so you have to internalize, if you're working with a nonprofit or leading a nonprofit, you have to internalize the impact and your mission so that you understand when someone or when you are thinking about going off path or, getting off track and things like that. It's so easy. We
Mhm.
follow those little shiny baubles and
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm, a squirrel chasing all the different things.
Mhm.
And so that's absolutely okay. So let's talk about the story itself
Mhm.
because you talk to tell the stories from the inside out.
Mhm. Mhm. That means to me, so when if you start from a place of alignment, you're starting from the mission. So that means this the story starts there. Like whatever, or the message starts there, I should say. Like the story I think always centers around the message, but it is like starting from that place of who you are, and then according to your mission, what have you accomplished? And then what are the stories around that? So it really is like it's just conveying, again, like we said, more of the same. It's the mission, it's the alignment, it's the, making sure that people know who you are in the world and what you've accomplished, because then those are the stories that live on, right? Those stories keep working on your behalf even when you're
Mhm.
not in the room.
Do you have a secret formula? Like start with this, A, B,
Mm.
C, D.
I don't have a secret formula, but there are frameworks that I really adore. Like, for example, there's a book called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall, and I really
I got to
love
write that door down.
I really love the framework that she presents in the book for the stories that she tells, or the way that she talks about storytelling for businesses. So in that framework, there's, understanding the time, significant details. There are different things that she thinks that we should include.
Mhm.
And for me, I subscribe more so to the arc, how they say you have to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Even in her book, she calls it the normal, the explosion, and then the new normal. It's the same thing. So what's the arc of the story that we're telling? What's the message we're trying to convey? Like how are the folks gonna remember it? Those are sort of the elements that I pay most attention
Yeah,
to.
and I often have to remind nonprofits that they have two specific audiences.
Mm-hmm.
They have their appeal in terms of donors
Right.
that they have to tell their message trying to get support. And then
Mm-hmm.
they have a message that they have to give who they serve to,
Yep.
you know. And so you can't use blanket terminology for
Can't.
it has to be what is the goal of this piece, story, the inside out is what is the purpose of it? Yeah, and you
Exactly.
mentioned, why are you doing this initially? And you
Mm-hmm.
start there and then let it expand from there. Do you, okay, do you try to keep things concise?
Yes, and
I
right.
know.
the I heard a marketer say once before, the person who can convey the message in the fewest amount of words wins. But I still believe that you have to convey it successfully, and sometimes you just need more words. I'll give you a good example of there's one dance company, so nonprofit in the Memphis area, and they wanted to sort of have an editorial take on their impact report for their funders. And they came into the setting, since it was going to be a more editorial sort of impact report than your traditional ones, the same have it, and it's got to be this number of words, like no more than this number of words, which happens in magazines all the time. They say, give me an article and I only need it to
Yeah.
be 800 words, 1,000 words. And so they took the same approach. And I was tasked with telling the story of the money that was raised for their actual center, the dance center. And that still meant I had to like interview folks in the neighborhood who were like residents of the area, and then staff, and then the artistic director, right? And so capturing all of that
Yeah.
within 800 words,
Yes.
because that's the task, but then also making sure that you're conveying not just, oh, the center has 5 dance studios and we teach these classes out of it. Like, no, 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 no. Like, what is the center doing for the community? What is
Right.
the center? What does it mean for the people who use
What
it?
is the impact?
Exactly. And so sometimes, it has to be concise just for the sake of the project, and because that is usually what's best for a story. And you also got to make sure that, like, the story has the meat
It
underneath.
has to be complete. And
Exactly.
the reason I say that is because many nonprofits come to me about grants, and grants you got to, even the abstract statement don't go over 250 or whatever.
Right, right.
But that also means they have to know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just start rambling and thinking about things that are important to them,
Yeah.
because it's I always say, it's what's in it for them,
Mm-hmm.
not what's in
Exactly.
it for you. It's what's in it
Exactly.
for them. That's what they want to know. How does this impact me? You know,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's going after donors or uh, board members
Yep.
or even those you serve.
Mm-hmm.
Those you serve are trying to solve a problem. And so you need to start with the problem.
No problem. Right. And even in the book that I mentioned, I think there's a stat that is mentioned that's like people will remember a story 22 times more than they will remember any facts that you
Absolutely.
state.
And that,
So,
just so the listeners, Stories That Stick by Kendra
mm-hmm.
Hall, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna make sure I put that in in the podcast, because uh, resources are always wonderful to help
Yeah.
nonprofits think through what they're doing. Okay, this might be a loaded question because it's the bane of my existence. No, AI has infiltrated a lot of nonprofits, and I've gone to some sites, and I can, as soon as I start reading, I say, oh, they use Chat GPT and just copy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying Chat GPT or those tools are bad, but you have to know
Mm-hmm.
how to use them. They're just meant to be the framework. And just like we mentioned, an outline, beginning, middle, end,
Mm-hmm.
what's your thought on AI and Chat GPT?
To be honest with you, I'm someone who identifies as like an old soul. I still love the idea of records, and I still listen to old, soul music, Marvin Gaye and Frankie Beverly, rest his soul. Like I like that. And so when AI started to be like really, really like buzzing, I kind of turned my nose up at it initially, especially as someone who, I write for
Yeah,
um, national publications. And so I'm like, what is this? It just didn't feel real. And I will say that having sort of started to test it with some of the things, I put my original writing into prompts and ask
yeah,
for suggestions. I do see the value in that,
yeah,
because the time that I'm on thesaurus.com like all the time. Like, I
yeah,
need this kind of word, and what's this? To
yep.
be able to say, hey, here's what I'm starting with, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, here's who I'm writing to, here's the vibe
Yep.
I'm looking for. Can you give me some suggestions?
But see,
Has
you
made me
understand prompts.
understood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to understand what to put in there, and basically you're looking for resources, not
Exactly.
content.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I hope many nonprofits aren't going to rely on it for their content, because
Mhm.
only they can tell their story.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And
That's
and so
exactly.
and the reason I brought that up is because I'm gonna do a whole workshop, how to
Mhm.
use AI for nonprofits, or
Mhm.
what is AI, all some of the
Mhm.
different tools and the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
There's even some guidelines, or not, I won't call them regulations, but some tips and warnings of
Mhm.
watching out when you're posting using AI at this point.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's something that I'm researching, and I'll have some training on it that will come out in November. So
Nice.
great.
Sounds amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so how to tell stories. I think we've
Mhm.
already got into that. Beyond traditional long form writing. First, I want you to define what is long form writing, because everybody is not familiar with our writing terms.
Right. Yeah. So the article I've seen, I'm supporting a nonprofit now with some of their storytelling, and they are in the education space, and some of their blog posts can be like 2,000 words plus, right? So we were talking 800 before. That's not even a lot. That takes you a couple minutes to read, but like 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, that is your journal writing, like getting writing into journals. That is important. storytelling.
Mhm.
And there are other ways that you can be getting your story out into the world that is beyond, sort of that more traditional, we're going to write it down. It's going to be a journal or periodical or, something of that nature.
Absolutely. And do you encourage them to, well, I'm focused on websites very often.
Mm-hmm.
And I often encourage them to use blogs to
Mm-hmm.
post as updates to, hey, guess what's happening? Or, not
Yeah.
to market events or things, but to educate, op-eds, to educate their community about the impact they're having without it being a formal ask,
Yeah.
where this is not us asking for money. It's us trying to inform you, tell
Mm-hmm.
you what you're doing.
Blogging, I think, is super important for SEO, super important for content like credibility, thought leadership, even thought like partnership, partnering with another nonprofit in the space and like going in together, like sort of sharing each other's audiences, making sure that you're still nurturing, to your point, the audience that you currently have, if you have a list, like that sort of blogging is, I think, is super important and valuable in all of those ways. And I'm a huge fan of
Okay,
using
folks, did you hear that? Blogging is important.
I think it's still really valuable in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I get a lot of kickback or
Yeah.
pushback, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we just don't have time to do that. But I'm like, but it's so important for the big picture.
Yeah.
You can't put everything in a newsletter and things. In fact, we were talking about word count and things like that. I often laugh. Oh, we have to fill up 16 pages. Really? Why do you have to fill up 16 pages? Because that's how it folds.
Mm.
Let's go digital. Only say what's important. You don't
Yeah.
stop putting all this filler because people recognize when it's just filler.
And they
And
start to tune
when
you out.
I was about to say they get turned
Mm-hmm.
off, tuned
Mm-hmm.
out and turned off,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
say what's important and, get to the point and make it easy to access. Digital.
Mm-hmm. And make it sticky too. Yeah. So in addition to some of that writing, video content is super powerful. And it could be as simple as like shorter, sort of micro content reels or things for LinkedIn.
Yep.
It could be case studies. It could be, your founder story. It could be your value story. Any of those in like little short 4 to 5 minute snippets
Yeah.
that you can put on a blog
Yeah.
post. It could be a podcast like the one that you have now. Like there
Well,
are so
I
many
even
ways.
tell them to go out, open a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yep.
And and any video, once you get used to, oh, I need to video that, or you get and start seeing the value of videos, put all of them up on your YouTube channel. It's a great storage place for them.
Not
Those,
just storage, but YouTube is also a search engine. So like
yeah,
when people are Googling some of the problems that you're solving, like are you going to come up as part of the discourse, right?
yeah.
So all of that is important.
Okay, did you say all you need to tell stories beyond traditional long form? Right,
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
cover.
right. Right. That's what we were just talking about. And I will say, going back to the strategic part of it, I used to be the type of person that would sort of be looking for the way, even in my own business. Like, what's the way that I'm going to build this? What's the way that I'm going to sort of grow what's in my mind and make it come to fruition? But there's so many ways to do anything, right? To tell
Absolutely.
stories, to grow your body of work. And so if it really does, going back to the idea of alignment, tell stories in a way that is with who you are as an organization, where your people are, where are your funders, where are your clients or the people you serve. Are they on YouTube? Are they reading blog posts? Are they at events? Where are they? And start telling stories there
Absolutely.
to reach them. So it doesn't mean that you have to do everything and you have to be on every platform and you've got to tell stories
No,
every way. You
yeah.
just got to be
Your
authentic and
people
genuine.
aren't everywhere. You
Exactly.
you have to know who your target audience is. That's another training I did.
Exactly.
Donor, and it's grounded in marketing also. Who
Yeah.
is your target audience? Because you can't be all to everyone.
Nope.
Then you're unsuccessful in everything. Trying to
Exactly.
be all to everyone. It's
Exactly.
it's just the little details helping them conceptualize, there's many platforms that you can tell your story on.
Mhm.
Yes, when we think of stories, we automatically think of reading or writing,
Mhm.
but there's images that you could use to tell your
Yeah.
story.
Yep.
There's video you could use to tell your stories.
Yep.
All of these are important because as educators,
Mhm.
we have to attract or look at how do people learn or how do
Mhm.
people access what you're doing. I'm a
Mhm.
visual person.
Same.
I like to see images and things like that. You probably look behind me and just see, you know, um, and there's, with thinking about the multiple intelligence. Now, don't think you have to be an educator in order to tell your story, but just think of how many ways can you tell this story?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you and I, we could get up and start moving and
Exactly. 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 And that's
and
a
get,
story.
yeah, that's a story. So it's strategic. I'm going back to your word. When I'm helping groups with strategic planning, I don't start with what are our weakness and all of that. I start with innovation.
Nice.
How can we think outside the box? Let's think, let's do a creative session
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
What are some of your dream things you think this organization could possibly do, be, or take on?
Mhm.
But of course, have the mission there. And so
Mhm.
it makes them start thinking creatively. And
Yep.
creative, in fact, a good friend, he's in that whole creative space. In fact, he used to dance for Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, nice.
But he was talking about the definition of creativity. It's not about being an artist.
Mm-mm.
It's about opening up your mind
Mhm.
and exploring new things, being open to new ideas,
Yep.
and just sort of saying, the world is out there. How many ways can I tap into it?
It's really just about bringing your ideas to life. That's all it is. And your
Yeah,
ideas can come to life in a process. It could come to life in a job description. It like if you're designing anything, creating anything, that is creative practice. And I agree wholeheartedly. I talk to people, they shy away. They think that they're not creatives because they're not making art. And that's
yeah,
just not.
yeah. Creativity has nothing to do. You're an artist.
Yes.
You're making art.
Exactly. Exactly.
Everyone can be creative. They
Mhm.
just have to acknowledge it and then recognize it. Oh, that was creative of me. No.
Mhm. Your problem solving can be creative. Like you can be an accountant and be like just a wizard with how you create, the make the things come alive. Like that's all. It all has a place. As I say in the theater, there are no small parts. So there are no small parts of creativity either.
Absolutely. I used
Yeah.
to say that too.
Yeah.
Okay. No matter where you are on stage, someone is watching you.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, wrapping this up, do you have any final words or tips for nonprofits out there? Because we have small ones that are just, one or two people. We have the mega ones, and everything you've said fits all of them. But
Mhm.
any final tips for our audience?
Yes, two that come to mind for me. One is when you're thinking about telling your stories, what you want to do is bridge the gap between where your either funders or your clients are and to like what the messages that you need them to know. So, some of the stories, well, I'll just use the example of the nonprofit that I'm working with now. If their core message is about, equity in public school systems, that's the message. But like where we have to tell the stories of where their funders are. We have to tell the stories of where the leaders that come to them for development are, and sort of help those different audiences see themselves in that message and see why that message is important to them. So when you're thinking about storytelling, just think about, okay, what's my overall message? Why is it important? Why would it matter to the people in my audience? And you got to tell that story. The second thing I would say is I hear this all the time and I've seen it. I've lived it in the nonprofit space. I know capacity is an issue. I promise you, I know that you don't have the people to do it. But that is why there are people like Dr. Boyd and myself, consultants that can come in and help be the extra hands that you don't have. And so, working with external consultants to help you tell your stories and tapping into our networks and tapping into our expertise, because it doesn't have to be a problem that you're solving on your own. it is something that someone can come in and, once you've gotten a strategy around the stories you're telling, you've gotten a good amount of content and the ways that you're telling them, then you can move on to solving the next problem. So those are the two things I think.
Absolutely. That's why capacity is in our mission statement,
Mm-hmm.
building capacity. And many people don't really understand what capacity is.
Mm.
It's
That means you don't have enough people to do
you don't have
errands.
the bandwidth. And it's
Yeah.
not about money.
Yeah.
So the capacity could mean many things.
Hmm.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Shatay, it
Yes.
has been fabulous. I
Likewise.
hope we stay connected. If you ever need, services or a group that you're working with needs, some training or stuff, we can
Absolutely.
keep those
Yeah.
things going.
I love that.
Great having you here.
Mhm.
People, reach out to Shatay. I'm going to have her website and how to contact her and all of the information with this podcast. Make sure you watch it, share it, because this is very important. You have a marketing team. You need to send this to your marketing team. But this has been the Nonprofit Podcast with Shatay Hayes and your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And we will see you next time. Produced by the Philanthropreneur Foundation. And don't forget to visit AI for Nonprofits.